Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Writers Chat. We're so glad that you're with us here today, either live, we got some of our regular crew in the chat room, or you're watching this on the replay. We know quite a few of you watch on the replay, so we're glad that you're with us today. This is the place where we talk about all things writing for writers and by writers. And so, again, we are glad to get together and chat about writing this week on the Writers Chat. My name's Jean Wise. I'm a Christian nonfiction writer, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts. We got Johnny, right, Johnny?
Hey.
Johnny Alexander and Bethany Chat. And I'm going to turn it over pretty quickly to Bethany so she could introduce this week's topic and this week's guest that we have with us. I'm looking forward to this. So Bethany, take it away.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bethany Jett, and I'm the co-owner of Serious Writer, and Rhonda has founded and is the president of One Christian Voice, which is a news forum that exists to connect Christians in local areas by sharing like news and information and events and things. And so Kyle Young is my business partner. Many of you know him. He's a literary agent. And we met Rhonda at the Florida Christian Writers Conference, even though we've known each other on social media. And we had this great conversation and decided that it was time to partner together so that way we could get One Christian Voice into more local areas and provide freelance opportunities for writers and editors. And so Rhonda is simply amazing. I'm going to let her introduce herself more than me, but she has 3 daughters. And are you still in Palm Beach Gardens, Rhonda?
I am, yep.
Yeah, so she's a Florida girl like me. I love it. And the cool thing about Rhonda that I didn't know when we met was that she taught English and French, and I was forced to take French in high school and college, but I loved it. So this is very cool.
Always love the language, always.
It's so fun. So today we're really excited to talk like super deep about One Christian Voice, how you can write for them, the different ways you could even earn money with One Christian Voice as a freelancer. And then we can always divert into like how to, what makes for a good story and hooks and talk about freelancing as well. So Rhonda, if you want to tell a little bit more about you, we'll just jump right in.
Okay, well, I'll tell you a little bit about One Christian Voice. We started just as a little tiny news event listing, not news, just event listing. And then we started, I started listing news just for my little tiny area here in Palm Beach County, just the county. And then we started dividing it up into other counties. And then I met Del and Angie Didway at the Florida Christian Writers Conference, and they asked if they could start one in Ohio. And then I met Becky Lindsay, and she asked if she could start a division in California. And it just kind of me grabbing by the tail of watching it, what it was becoming. And then it became, now we are news by sharing our local stories. So the local news stories become national news stories when we share them across the 20 divisions that we have. And so we're always looking for people who will contribute interesting, relevant, newsworthy stories. We're also looking for editors. We want to, the goal is to cover the United States with news, starting one local division at a time. And so we're looking for editors, if you're wanting to make an income of it. We launch your division, and then as you grow and as you get followers and start getting ad money coming in, then you keep 75% of the ad money that you raise. And so that's how that works.
On that, is each division by state? Is that how you do that?
It's by city. So
by city.
We have, I think, 8 divisions in Florida, and then we have 2 in Ohio, 2 in Texas, 2 in, where else? I don't know, but we have multiple. The idea is the more you have in one state, the more people writing, the easier it is for each division, because then they share that news. Like we've got other people writing for Florida, so one person's not responsible for covering the news in Florida. So, so we're starting at small divisions. So.
Okay, and I see Bethany's got the website in the chat too, so people can. Is that how they connect with you, through the website?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So people can see that resource.
So it sounds though like there's a whole bunch of territory yet to uncover. I mean, even
so much.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only covered a tiny percentage of the United States. So yes.
Wow.
Wow. And I'm going to show my ignorance here because I did look once, but I'm going to pretend like I didn't. On that way, when you publish, let's say I'm in Ohio, so you publish for, what do you by city? So let's say it's Columbus. I don't live in Columbus, but let's say it's Columbus, Northwest Ohio or whatever. Is it anything that's going on? Is it activities? Is it interview? Is it just personal stories? What all do you copy? What are the
That's
topics?
a great question. We cover all of it. We cover anything that that would be interesting and relevant. I love covering events, love covering activities, love covering people stories, celebrities, anything that's going on in Northwest Ohio would be.
Not much, trust me. Oh, no.
It doesn't necessarily have to be just the Christian community. It could be a Christian perspective on current events.
Oh, wow.
Story. It could be someone who has an expertise in a certain area, writing about that expertise in that area. And it can be, if you're interested in writing, there's always something that you can write about. I mean, if you reach out to me and say, I want to write an article, give me something. I mean, you can take anything, like the unfortunate tragedy of Kate Spade that just happened. There's a girl living down the street from me who designs purses, and she's got them all over in Palm Beach and beyond, and it's really getting to start to take hold. And but she has a really interesting story that her grandfather was a pastor, and her mom had to leave her dad because he was abusive, and they actually, I'm not going to say her name because someone would have to ask if she's willing to tell it, but I'd be willing if she's willing to tell her story. They were actually homeless. They were living in a tent and eating oatmeal until they went to live with the grandfather. And, just the story that ties in, the really rough beginnings. So many people who are artists and creatives didn't have an easy go of it in the beginning. It's what makes them really passionately pursuing their career. And so if someone wrote to me and said, I want to write something, I would say, you could be anywhere. We would publish that from Palm Beach because it's relevant to Palm Beach because that's where she lives. But it could be a video interview. It could be an email interview, with a series of 10 questions. And, she'll tell you as much as she's willing to offer, but I think it would be a really interesting and relevant story. And it's relevant because it's something that's happening in the news.
So are there certain deadlines or certain publication routines that you follow?
There are we don't have deadlines, but as the further you get away from the story that's making news, the less newsworthy it becomes. So, unless there's a brand new information that's revealed or found out or discovered, as it becomes old news, it's less relevant. People aren't going to read it as much as something that's current and they're seeing all over the place. Right. But just something that's happening in the current news that we can tell from a Christian perspective and add a component of Christianity to it. Whereas this lady down the street who's got this thriving, not just purses, but accessory business, how she grew up with a grandfather who was a pastor, was a minister, and how that affected her and how that shaped her. And, it's just something in there to make it relevant to the Christian community.
Yeah. And explain to me again how people are paid. You said there was a payment possible with this. Can you explain that again?
The payment that is possible is for the editors right now. As it grows, and as revenue starts increasing, the editors might wish to pay for articles, especially if they have someone who is consistently publishing and driving traffic to their site.
Got it.
If you have a niche and you want to present that and you start driving traffic to that one particular site, and it's worth that person's time because they're getting ads because of it.
So the editor also has the responsibility of being a salesperson in a sense too. Is that right?
They want to be paid.
They want to be paid.
Makes sense.
Well, you laugh, but a lot of them don't. I mean, a lot of them want their books sold. They want their name out there, so they're not doing it.
Right.
Got it. And for writers, can they can do it like a bio where they have a connection to a website or to a current book?
For an editor, you're talking about?
No, for the writer, for somebody that submits it.
Absolutely. For the writers, this is what as we grow, it becomes more significant. But if someone is contributing stories to us and they're writing well, and people are reading their articles, then we make them an author on all of the sites. So when they send us a story, and it's a good story, then we share it across, right now we have 20 divisions, then it gets shared, and they're listed as an author on all of those 20 divisions.
Wow.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's the multiplication effect as we grow.
It's also platform, and that getting your name
Yeah,
on the platform.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's significant.
That's great too. And Rhonda was telling us too that when a story goes really big or a really well written story, even on the social media side, that'll be a story that can be promoted across, multiple channels and not just yours. So when you talk about platform, I mean, we really think of this as serious. Like, one of the reasons why this partnership, and we had to have Rhonda come on here and tell you guys about One Christian Voice, is because as we grow together and we keep branching out into more opportunities, that means, especially for those of us who get in early, for those of you watching who want to get in and write and start a division or become an editor, this platform is just going to explode. And like you said, the multiplication effect. So this is just an amazing.
It is. So when we share a story, it goes to not only all the websites, all the different locations, but it goes to all the Twitter accounts, all the Facebook accounts. There's different ones for each one. A lot of them go to. We don't always share it on Instagram, but a lot of them go to the Instagram. So it is a multiplication effect. And when you mentioned getting started early, it is going to become increasingly difficult to become an author because of the logistics of creating an account for each author on every.
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
It takes hours and hours to do that. So number one, we want to make sure that they're going to continue contributing before we go to that effort. And number two, it is going to be more difficult because when we have, the more websites we have, the more locations we have, the more it's difficult.
So you actually have, well, I was on there this morning and saw, One Christian Voice and the team and the different categories, like there was lifestyle and sports and all of that. But you're saying you actually have multiple websites that feed from that one?
I don't have them listed on the
Okay.
I'm kind of trying to grow slowly and trying to
Good, yeah.
And so I don't list that we have. I don't really advertise that we have all those locations. When you go to One Christian Voice, you really have to search for the different locations. And when you go to other locations, you really have to. It's a tiny little tab at the very top that you click on, and I don't even have all of the locations listed on each one. One Christian Voice probably has most of the locations listed on it, and it's a tiny tab at the very top. Or you can put One Christian Voice .com/locations, and you'll see.
Okay.
But yeah,
Well, am I understanding right too that you're sort of making a distinction between writers and authors? Like, you might have people write 1 or 2 articles and never hear from them again, but if they write consistently, then they enter this author category, where then you said it takes a lot of time to set that up for them.
Once they become an author, okay, so it's just when I see an article that's well written, if they've already contributed 3 stories or 4 stories and good stories, and they're already an author on I've already created them as an author, it's super easy for me to share that, and it looks much more professional to list them with an author bio rather than a guest.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have guest writers and then authors.
So I'm just much more likely to share it if they're already an author.
Yeah.
Whether I have 4 hours of work ahead, listing them as an author. So it is going to be, there is something to be said for early entry, and also the fact that there are so many divisions that are available.
Yeah. Do you have certain areas that you really would like to see expanded to as divisions?
No, wherever they're, it does seem that the bigger cities they're easier to start, just because there's more people there, and when you put an event, you have a larger population that you do. So it does seem to be the larger cities do seem to be easier to start. But But no, wherever the Lord leads, I'm happy to open the vision.
Yeah. Now, Jeremy put a question in the chat, and I want to kind of get to that and not have it get buried or that we lose it. And because he has to cut out early too, he might already be gone, but he's going to try to catch it on the replay. But Liz, this is what he asked. I'll read it to you, Rhonda, and you do that. He used to write for a local newspaper in Illinois, and he has hundreds of positive feature articles on a variety of people and topics. My publisher didn't use any of these online at all. Can I submit these to you if I get his permission to publish it with you?
Yes. The ones that will be most interested are the ones that are relevant to today. The ones that are somewhat newsworthy, unless it's something that is an everyday thing that he has an expertise in. That so if it's relevant to today, like if it's newsworthy, I would love it. Absolutely,
Okay.
yes. Yes.
So if it's been publicized otherwise, at least not online, you would want it. But if it's been publicized online, does that eliminate it?
You mean if he's already published it somewhere else?
He has published these someplace else, it sounds like, in paper form, but not online.
He has permission to reprint them.
Is what he's saying. He would get permission to reprint
I would
them.
be happy to. If they're, yes, I would be happy to.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Wow.
Great, that's great.
Yeah.
And
that-
then what about other things online? If the person still has the copyright to them, or if something's somewhere else, would you want original content?
No, we're happy to take material from other, that they've already published. The only, if we had paid for the article, then we would ask for to be mentioned if it's reprinted. But but when it's contributed, we're just happy to receive it.
I have it.
Yeah.
I mean, we have someone in California, Monica Solano, who does movie reviews. So, and I think Matt Morgan does some movie reviews, and he has actually gotten to see the movies in advance, and then they watch it, and then they do it before it comes out. They do a review.
Wow.
So once you've written for us, there are some perks, like if you write well and we have a relationship with you and we know who you are, you could write as a correspondent for One Christian Voice and reach out to someone that you really admire that you'd like to do an interview with and say that you're writing for an article for One Christian Voice. And you get to meet some interesting people, whether it's online or in person.
That's a perk.
Also, getting into events, if there's an event that you would like to have 5 minutes with performers and do a write-up, if you're a regular writer for One Christian Voice, we can usually get you a media pass so that you can have a word and write an article. As long as you're writing the article, that we're not saying that you're going to write the article and then someone gives us an interview and it doesn't come out, would not be good. So as long as we know who you are and we know that we're going to get the article, and then it would have to be timely, because if the event just happened, it's relevant.
Yeah.
So when you say there a deadline, it would have to be, next day after the concert,
Submitted pretty quick. I wrote for our local newspaper for 10 years, and I tell you that media passes sometimes come in handy. They're a nice perk. They're a nice perk on that. So that's real tempting to have access to that too. Rhonda in the chat asked about word count, about how long articles.
About 500 words and not more than 1,500. I mean, people want short, pithy, get to the point. They don't, they're not looking for long, unless you have just a plethora of wonderful information. And I've said this before, but when you're writing a journalistic article, you give the most relevant, the most newsworthy, the most interesting information, you give it first. And then you can successively less interesting information as you continue in the article. So if you have, information that you think should be shared, keep going. But 500 words would be great.
That way. And is there any interest in articles about events overseas? Someone else asked that.
If you're going overseas, absolutely. I mean, we have a staff writer who writes the world news articles, but if you're going over there, we would love that. Absolutely. If there's a Christian event that you're going to, that would be wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that way, that sounds great. It sounds exciting. Do they have to submit photographs with the articles?
A good question.
They don't have to. If they have it, that is wonderful.
Mhm.
Love
Okay.
it. Love, but if they don't have a photograph, I do ask them to find something relevant, like on unsplash.com. They have
Yeah.
fabulous photos. This is my favorite one.
Yeah.
They're free and they're copyright free, and all they ask is an occasional share. So
That's right. That's right. So I use them also. So, but if you're interviewing a particular person or event or something like that, you would automatically take a picture of that, I would think, to go
yes,
along with it,
yes.
on that. So that sounds great.
I would rather have a slightly less professional picture that's live and real than
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, on that way. That sounds exciting. Well, I'm going to have to explore this website more.
I know. Well, I like what you said too, and I just want to kind of go back to it and stress it a little bit, is that these articles are to be written from a journalistic approach,
yes.
not essay or
Blog
or
style.
what, or blog. Yeah, that you are looking for that journalist
With
voice.
journals articles are just a little bit different. It's just more information based. You're providing information, and it doesn't have to. The writing is not as flourishing. It's not.
Mhm.
Like that.
It's to get the information out quickly. In fact, you don't want to really write at the 12th grade level. You really want to keep it super easy to read, short sentences, short paragraphs. I mean, you could vary the sentence structure, but you just don't want too long of sentences. You want it just super. You want to just be able. You want that reader to keep reading, and so the way that you keep them reading is not by increasing the intensity of the conflict. But it's by providing new information.
Right. And as the old, whenever you want to write for any publication, if you study the current publication,
Right.
you will learn their format and style. And so this is a perfect example. If somebody's interested in writing for you, get on the website and study other articles that
I
you
was thinking the same thing. Just go read what's already up there.
Yeah.
If you go to SoCal Christian Voice, Angie does I mean, not Angie, Becky Lindsay does a fabulous job of taking her wonderful skills as a fiction writer and translating that to journalism and giving beautiful stories. And so do Dell and Angie, a lot of them do, but if there were one that I would say go to, she just interviewed John Christ, comedian. I think he's hysterical. He's edgy, I watched his clips and I'm like, but it's so funny. I kept watching it. So he was kind enough to give her an interview, and it wasn't long. It was a couple of questions that he answered for her, and so that's that just happened yesterday. So
Wow.
I see it's trending on the main on all the main pages.
that one I shared. Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool.
I share about an article a day. So
Okay. On that way. Do you have any tips on interviewing people? Because we could use that in all aspects of our writing. But
Too.
I do. Okay, so first of all, have your questions ready. Do your research. Know who that person is. Know the questions you're asking up ahead of time, and make sure that we, especially as writers have a lot of words. They have, whether they're written or spoken. My personal experience is that writers have a lot of wonderful words, but when you're doing an interview, your job is to let the other person give you those words because you're writing about that person. So really, it's the challenge for writers is to let the other person talk. You're writing, but then when you come home to go to your office to write the story, you've got to have the content from that other person, and the time is limited. Depending on how busy that person's schedule is, you want to focus all on them. So have great questions ready and focus on that person and try not to talk and just unless there's a lull, to give them or to keep control of the interview so that you're asking the questions that you want answered for your interview. But otherwise to try to ask some insightful questions to get talking, maybe throw some Barbara Walters type questions out there that are out there that are unusual. to make it interesting and not the same questions that every journalist asks them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
I learned it in the years I interviewed people that the interview's not over until it's over, because sometimes the best quote I got as I was going out the door. I don't know what it was, but it was something about they'd build a rapport up and they think the interview is over, and then they just say something just absolutely wonderful. It is not that the interview is over, because I'll often say, "Oh, I really like how you phrase that. I'm going to be sure and put that in the article," and then it goes on. So they know I'm not sneaking something. I don't want to do that at all.
which
But
reminds me, record the interview. If you're doing
Yeah.
a verbal interview, I would record it. And there again, don't turn the recording off. It's so tempting to say, okay, we're done, but keep it running. You know, usually they don't care. You can say the interview's over and you can chat and but if there's something that you need to, you know, remember that you don't remember that they said, you can ask them, you know, the interview's over, but you said this, can I write this? I wouldn't turn it on.
Often it was just the gem that you're going to focus the whole article on, that they just made some comment about, oh, my passion has always been da 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 da. You think there's the theme.
Exactly. They start to relax, they put their guard down, and then it opens up. Still, I would ask permission, you know, this was the interview tonight, but they might be perfectly willing to share that.
I don't think I was ever refused, because it was just more of the essence. They were kind of thinking the summary of everything that we had talked about too, and so I don't think I was ever refused on that. But that going out the door, that last gem always seems to bubble up or something like that.
So on the flip side, if we're being interviewed, we need to remember that too. Be careful what you say if the person's going out the door.
Yeah. You could be quoted. You say it. You know, they know you're being interviewed on that. Rhonda in the chat asked if you ever used opinion articles, such as a Christian viewpoint on a hot topic.
Yes, we do, and we have an opinion section.
Okay.
We do. Thank you for asking if we ask opinions, because it would be listed as not an article, but as an opinion section. And people love to read other people's opinions. So yes. Mm-hmm.
So they like to comment on them.
What? What? Like to comment? Yeah.
They like to read them, then they like to comment.
That's true.
On that, and that a lot of times would generate you some social media too, I'm sure.
You can also take the opinion that you have and write it as an article and give the facts, and it's just a matter of which facts you're focusing on, and take a current event and research it and give the facts. And it doesn't have to be an opinion article unless if you're just presenting facts, it's an article. If you're saying, I think, I believe, then it's opinion.
Yeah. And since not everybody has seen the website, you talked about a section for opinion. Do you have other sections that you want to kind of give us an overview?
All the different sections, all the different categories that we have.
Yeah.
We have entertainment. We have a lifestyle section. And in that would be movie reviews, play reviews, book reviews. You can, if you read one another's books and want to do a book review, that would be great. So get your friends to write reviews for you, and if you think
I like that.
I do too. We all like that.
I mean, promote the good books. I mean,
And it sounds like you're growing quite a bit. What is your readership, or do you have any ideas on views?
We're growing slowly. I mean, I guess if you in 7 years create different divisions, we have it, but it's been a slow growth. Our readership it varies. I need to keep better track of that.
No, we all say that.
Some articles get 4,000 hits, 5,000 hits, and some get 200. I'm just being honest. It depends on what people want to read and the interest level. I mean, what makes good articles is a bit of conflict, and those tend to get, the ones that are dramatic, where there's a little drama and a little conflict, those do get read more.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It doesn't surprise. It doesn't surprise you with
No.
the readers.
Mm.
All that went down. So, what do you think? In you're working with so many writers and authors, can you give us ideas of, boy, I wish I'd see more of this, writers do this, or is there any tips that you can give us, insights?
Providing relevant information, making sure that the story is newsworthy up front. I get a lot of, I'll tell you what I get that I'm not, that I, I just, it breaks my heart, but I just can't justify sharing it to other people, to the other divisions is the inspirational content. I get a ton of like blog type articles that I just get too many. It's
Too
really
many.
not our focus. Our focus is news.
Mm-hmm.
But the other, what I'm not interested in getting is, wait, could you ask the question again? I'm sorry.
I was just saying, tips for us as writers. What do you wish writers would quit doing or add more of? And I think you're just your tip about that to remind you that you're news.
Yeah.
To write for news on that way, would be important. But
I'm trying to think. I don't get too many where I mean, really, we have really quality writers.
Great.
So far, I mean, most of them are, but if they're not, then we don't post there. But so I don't get too many where I say I wish they wouldn't do that. I'm trying to think of what I mean.
Okay.
When you say that, what comes to mind is when I read an article and say, I can't find a place for that.
Okay.
But
it goes back to read the guidelines then and know you're writing who you're writing for, and then you're writing in the format and the topics that they need.
Yes.
That stuff.
Yes.
Rhonda, do you ever assign articles or pieces to somebody? Like if you've got an author that, I mean, it sounds like now you've got like a stable of authors. Do you ever actually assign them pieces?
I mean, we can always use more writers. We don't have an overabundance of writers.
Okay.
So actually, I just did. There's a veterinarian in North Florida who wanted to write for us, and she's a missionary. She's got a strong Christian background, and she's writing a book. And so she asked, "What can I write?" And really, her area of expertise is a veterinarian. So I asked her to write an article of it was kind of random, but I asked her to write an article about having dogs outside in the heat.
Yeah.
About having dogs, especially in Florida, we hear so much about dogs getting caught in cars. But my sister's dog died not recently, but she just had him in a park, and he came home and he had a stroke and died. And
oh my gosh,
wow.
Terrible. So I think that, and I had no idea that you couldn't do that. So I asked her if she would write an article about that, and it was a fabulous article. So occasionally, if they come and say if they ask me, is there something that you want me to write about? I would love that. But there again, if they're contributing content to us, I'm happy to have what they are willing to write about.
That's cool. I wouldn't even have thought about animal-related topics with One Christian Voice. I mean, it's like, I've got to go look at this website and spend some more time on it and see what else there.
A lot of times we'll take if it's interesting and relevant, and if it's we will create a Christian twist for it. Like we had Ashley Jones. I didn't know it, but she's an author, and she works with reviewers. Anyway, she wrote an article about insurance, and I didn't realize that she had an insurance background. She has a bachelor's degree in insurance, and she contributed a story, and it was so interesting, and I was so grateful to have that. And so if someone has an area of expertise, then we would be very grateful for information that we can share with our audience.
I think sometimes we sell ourselves short as writers about the area of expertise we have, I'm just thinking, like, and I'm going to pick on Johnny here, we think of her as a fiction writer, but she worked for years for her, was it state representative, Johnny?
Yeah.
So you have some idea on how to write a letter to a state rep that would get a response. We forget that we carry these life experiences with us.
That would be fabulous. I mean,
Yeah.
you think people know things like that, and the general population does not. And
and does it even make a difference? Well, she saw on the inside and probably saw, yes, it did make a difference on that way, on that. Bethany, do you want to bring up that question that you just typed?
I sure do, because we talked about, I had to print things. Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
We talked about Medium a couple of weeks ago, or last week or sometime. And on Medium, you can reprint or republish things from your blog or other articles when you have reprint rights. So my question for the recording is, what are the reprint rights for writers and authors after they've published on One Christian Voice?
Okay, if they publish an article on One Christian Voice and it was contributed, donated to us, then we do not claim any rights to it. They can republish it wherever they want. But if they're paid to write an article, then we would have the publishing rights. And if they want to republish it somewhere, if they would please credit us that they saw it first in One Christian Voice.
That's good. So then we could write, like, for One Christian Voice. I'm sorry. And then put that on Medium, right? I mean, that would be a strategy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then linking back to One Christian Voice.
And linking back to One Christian Voice.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Saving time, working smarter, not harder.
Yes.
Bye, Jeannie.
I know Jeannie had to go. I've got somebody trying to crawl in my lap.
Aww.
Sorry.
There is a question in the chat, so while you're doing
it's long. Yeah,
okay.
Take care of it.
Okay. So for the recording, I am going to go ahead and read the comment in the chat from Rachel. She says, I've conducted interviews with several pastors and wives from around the world and featured them on my blogs. I've also interviewed some military personnel. I have several yeses for future interviews with police officers, both locally, statewide, and across the country, which I need to get started on. I also plan on more military personnel interviews and with foster parents. I'll also be conducting more interviews with pastors and wives in the future. My personal blog is syndicated with my local newspaper's online blogs, the Cape Cod Times, and I'm free to submit my articles elsewhere 30 days after publishing on their platform. Here's the question. Would it be permissible to submit prior interviews to One Christian Voice after posting to both my blogs, as long as the content is still currently relevant? Is question one.
Yes.
And number two, also, because articles that are personal opinion.
You publish it on your blog, and you publish it, you submitted it, and you're waiting for the time to come when you're free to publish it elsewhere. So you're saying, can we also send it to you? Correct? Is that
I think that's the question.
Absolutely, please. Yes.
And question two is, do you accept articles that are personal opinion on current events or cultural issues? And that was in the, you have an opinion section for articles like that. So yes, I'm guessing.
We do accept the opinion articles. I would just encourage you to, you can send it as an opinion. But I would also encourage you to see if you can't publish it as an article. Just present the facts and present them as you see them as a Christian perspective.
I like that. I like that you're encouraging us to do that, because I think a lot of us do just sort of write off the top of our head and revise it, and do all of that. I'm not sure how many of us think in that journalistic view, like I know Jeannie does, because she's got that background. So I think that's just real important to stress is, let's write these articles and let's
I would love to see the news told through the Christian perspective. I think that a lot of it comes from, it's just my opinion. This is just my opinion. I can't write an article. Well, that's every journalist has an opinion, and most of the journalists, the goal is so that we don't know your opinion at the end of the article, because it's just presenting facts. But the fact is, everyone does have an opinion, and the way that you write and the perspective that you write you're telling the facts,
Right.
and you're telling them as you see them.
And we would hope that our opinions were based on something beyond just feelings. I mean,
Exactly.
that they had a
It's
basis.
a more powerful article. It's a much more powerful article if it's written in a factual basis, than, well, this is kind of how I feel. I think, I mean, go for it if that's what you want to send. But I also want to raise the bar for you a little bit and say, well, maybe you can just tell us the story from a different perspective. You can research a current event, and read 6 periodicals and do some research and write the article as a news article. Would love that. Would absolutely love that. Then we're starting to tell news from eyes of Christ followers.
Yeah. Yeah, and you talked about relevant things, and I understand absolutely the importance of that. But then, do you ever do any kind of historical pieces at all, or is there room for that anywhere?
In terms of something that happened, well, yeah, okay. So if you're a history buff and there's something that if you could possibly submit it at a time, like maybe when there's a celebration,
Okay.
Memorial Day, or for whatever, if there's something coming up, there's a holiday for everything.
Of course.
If we find a holiday that's appropriate for that, then yes, absolutely. And if I could just make another comment to this person, this wonderful question about the interviews that she does. I mean, one of the reasons that we exist is to point people to Christ and to show the gospel. And so some of the interviews, if there's a really strong pull and emotional that could change a life, if someone read it and maybe they're in the middle of that sinful lifestyle, or in the middle of struggling with a certain sin, or just in the middle of something, and it could have the possibility of impacting their life in a positive way, of giving them a fresh new look at or hope, or even though it's not newsworthy, that's a story we want to publish, because it follows within the mission of what we're doing. So when I see, well, we're interviewing police officers, is it relevant? Is it newsworthy? But if it's also really a poignant, strong case for Christ, and it's not in the news, we want to publish those too.
I love that.
Me too.
This reminds me a little bit of Matt Walsh, and some of you are familiar with him because he's highly controversial. He comes from a Christian worldview on the news, and many of his articles, as you were talking about how to write the articles, he came to mind because he gives you the facts, he does his research, but then he also has his opinion in there, but it doesn't feel like a blog. It really feels like a slant. And it's and yet he's got this huge platform because he's willing to say this is the worldview based on what's happening in the world. And that's kind of what you're offering to everybody as a platform to be able to do that in a very journalistic way, which is different than our blog. It gives more credibility sometimes when it's on a site like this. And so we're very excited about One Christian Voice.
We have another question. What point of view should articles be written from? I think she means, correct me if I'm wrong, Norma, but like first person, third person.
They're not first person.
Not first person. Unless it's an opinion piece.
Pardon me?
We have the same question.
We have the same question. Is opinion pieces would be first.
Yes, opinion piece would definitely be first person. Yes, that's about you really, really try to avoid first person unless it's an opinion article.
Right. We've got another question from Rhonda. If we publish on One Christian Voice, will it undermine us in a future book contract? For example, if I present a key idea from a book I'm writing on weight loss, will it be shunned by publishers as previously published? My thought would be no. That
would be a question for a serious writer, I think.
Yeah, I do too.
You might come across like a strange publisher who does weird things, but I think Overall, that's my disclaimer. But I think overall, publishers are looking at, have you self-published this book before? And that's what they're determining is recently published or it's been picked up by another publisher and you're trying to do the same book. That's typically, I think, what they mean. They want you building platform on this topic. And actually, the more that you're writing about this topic on other news mediums, the better it is that your book's going to do. And it doesn't hurt that. It actually helps that, because you're going to write it differently than you're going to write a book. I mean, that's the thing, is a journalistic article, a blog, even an article that's in first person that's not so journalistic, it's going to read differently than you would write a book.
Yeah, good questions. You guys have great questions. If there's anything else, we've got just a few more minutes.
And I just want to say, you know, we're not, it looks like we're trying to avoid controversial topics. I mean, we are trying to unite as Christians across denominations, but we are not trying to avoid controversial topics. And if someone has a passion for something and they see something from a certain viewpoint and they want to present it as factual and they want to dig a little bit, and we will publish that, you know, like right now there's a big controversy over the separation of children from their parents, and it's heart-wrenching. I just read, no, I just watched, who was it? Someone in the news saying it's not actually there. It's a very, very small percentage of cases, and it's when the people are doing something illegal. I would love to have more information on that. I didn't know that, and I think that, you know, we have the news media who is, you know, they're all selling, you know, copies, and so a lot of it's, you know, might be, we just want to be the voice of truth, and if there's a little digging, we're not trying to avoid the controversial topics. You know, you can quote Bible verses and just tell the facts, and we might, sometimes we get two different people telling the story from two different perspectives based on which Bible verses you apply. That's awesome. That makes it interesting. That makes it really interesting. In fact, not just about politics, but about, it was interesting. I had Susan Neal, just fabulous writer. She's been contributing some really great nutritional content, and then I had another writer who I'm, oh my goodness, Karen Whiting, who was contributing content, and the articles actually were the opposite of each other. You know, one thing, you know, Christ has always been about bread, and Christ has always been about, you know, the Last Supper, and Susan's saying, don't eat any bread anymore.
That's funny.
So it was really interesting. The next article that Susan published was, why is bread now bad? We used to eat it. And it was hysterical, and it was great. And it was, you know, okay, so now we have a resolution to that. So
I love that.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. Rhonda, just real quick, did you wake up one day and say, hey, I think I want to do a news website? I mean, what was your impetus for starting One Christian Voice?
There were three of us sitting around looking for something to do, three women. One of them was a land developer. One was retired from the CIA, both her and her husband.
Wow.
And there was myself, who really I taught long ago, but it's been many years since I've been teaching. And we just wanted to start a little event list. We said, there's nowhere to find Christian events. And so all we were trying to do was put something up online for our area to share events. And then from there, it grew to news. And then we started dividing, and I had no clue. No, I had no no, but it's fun. It's you know, I love doing this.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, you never know what God will just take that little nugget of an idea and just have it sprout in all kinds of different directions.
Once I saw where it could go, I was very excited about it, and I wanted it to go there yesterday.
Yeah.
So a lot of it has been waiting for the Lord to open doors and make ways, and it's been the excavation of the soul, you know, and wanting this to, you know, do what I see the possibility of it doing yesterday. But it will, you know, it's happening in His time, and that's always best.
I have so many ideas right now to pitch.
Awesome.
And Michelle Medlock Adams and I taught the advanced track I write to publish this week, and we taught on freelancing. and we promoted One Christian Voice. And I will tell you that as soon as I said we've got freelance opportunities in your local area to write news, everybody grabbed their pen or their laptop and they're writing down the website and checking you out. So there's competition, people, because I'm seeing this video.
I did see the
everybody. Yeah,
I haven't like, go through them yet, but I can't wait because it looks like some great content. I'm excited about it. Thank you so much.
Oh, we're excited. We're excited. And as you know, as we do these one-day events and these writers conferences, we're going to be sharing. And so I think this is the time, especially when you said it's going to get harder to become a for there. I was like, I'm going to beat all of y'all, and at some day I'll have my stuff turned in. So some healthy competition here.
Yeah, that's great. And I was thinking along the same lines. It's like, oh wow, if this is something you want to do, don't put it off. You've got to be writing those articles and sending them. Where are articles submitted? Is there an email address?
Thank you. I was just going to offer that. So the way that we publish them is they go through a local division. So you would find the division closest to you, and you would email the editor for that division.
Okay.
I mean, you can email me first and I can find it. And, email me at Rhonda at 1cvmchristianvoicemedia.com. And I can find an editor for you. But that's how they get published. Like for Susan Neal, she was contributing these wonderful, fabulous nutrition articles. And so the closest location to her was Tallahassee. So we published them from Tallahassee. Okay. And then they get shared so then all of the social media gets driven. If you're interested in becoming an editor, what happens is then, so that article that's, gets shared, all the traffic from all the divisions through social media get driven to that location. So all of the it's published on Tallahassee, and they get the traffic for that. Wow. So it's helpful. So you're not out there alone in your area. You're getting people who are contributing stories, and then when we share it to all the divisions, all those divisions get the traffic. You get the traffic from all those divisions. So
yeah, wow,
it's so smart, and the website is so beautiful. Like when you look on it, it's fantastic and gorgeous. And Rachel has another question. Mom, do you want to?
Sure. Rachel asks, what if there is no local division? When I looked last week, there was nothing in Massachusetts yet. Start one.
Okay.
Ground floor.
It's open field. So that, or if it's an event that's happening in your area, that's a really, relatively small event, it just wouldn't be relevant to the other areas. But if it's relevant, that it might be interesting to other readers in other areas, then just contact me and I'll publish it somewhere. So I'll find a place to publish it. What I hope this becomes is that for each city or area or region, it becomes a place where we can connect, a place where we can connect with one another through sharing our news, a place where somebody is a talented musician and they're gonna open their garage enough for a Christian concert and we publish it, and then you've got an audience, everybody comes. There's so much really fabulous local talent, whether it's writing or whether it's music or whatever, or acting or whatever. There's so much really positive talent. We want to be a platform to connect the body of Christ through our news. Really, our focus is on the local divisions, but we share across to the other divisions as well.
Wonderful.
My passion is for each small local area to connect with one another.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, me too.
But we'll find a place for it. If you don't be discouraged if you don't see a place near you, and if you don't want to start a division, then we'll find if it's relevant. We'll find a place for it. Thank you.
Well, there you go. Thanks. We've just got a couple more minutes. If you all want to come back in and let us know if you have trouble getting in, and we'll help you with that. And if anyone has a question they want to ask, just raise your hand and we'll make sure you can do that.
Rhonda, can you give your email address again? I'm going to put it in the chat.
Okay, it's Rhonda, RHONDA, at 1CVM, like Christian Voice Media, CVM.com.
Great, thank you.
Another thing I wanted to note is that there are a few divisions where the editors have just not plugged in yet. Some of them it's been an extended period of time. So if you're living in that area and you don't see much local content, reach out to me and I'll talk to the editor and see if, maybe they don't want to do it anymore. So maybe it's open.
Wow, very good too.
When I do list the position that the opportunity is open, it's overwhelming, the response that I get. And I'd much rather have from someone who's already writing for us and someone who, a serious writer sends to me, much rather have that than if I post an ad on Indeed and I have to go through 60 resumes and phone conversations. And it's just a much better way to connect someone and, fill that position.
So I know we're at the top of the hour and we're going to go into our after party, but I thought there were two more questions that are in here, so I thought might be good for the recording to go ahead and answer them. And then the rest of them will go into the after party off the record. So from Rachel, I saw on your site that editors are required to post at least once a week. Does that mean the editor must publish something they themselves have written or must post an article from a contributor in their division?
Either one. Either one. As long as you have local content going.
Great. That was a great question.
That was very good.
Because if you have 4 great writers and they're willing to write once a month, you're done. You don't.
Yeah.
That's
true.
And then Brandy asked, what's involved in being an editor? So maybe like just a quick wrap up, because we talked a little bit about that, but maybe just one more concise thing to end it, and then we'll go to our after party.
It's reaching out to your community, letting people know that there's a platform for connection and sharing news, making sure that there's an article published once a week, and reaching out to advertisers.
Fantastic.
That's great. That's amazing. This has been wonderful, Rhonda. Thank you so much. Remind everybody, next week we're going to have Brennan McPherson with us. He's an author of the Fall of Man series, including Cain, a small book called Adam, and his most recent book is The Flood, which I am currently reading. And if I don't meet my word count goals each day, it's because of Brennan's book, because he's an amazing writer and it is so hard to put it down the way he is telling this story. So really excited to have him. We're going to be talking a lot about reviews, and he had some issues with reviews when Cain came out, and we're going to talk about what he did to sort of overcome all of that. And then we'll just see how the conversation goes. So I hope you all join us next week for that. Rhonda, thank you again so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been great. And everybody just hang on and we'll have an after party.
Before you go off the recording.
Oh, yes.
One more thing. Del Didway, who writes for the Southern Ohio and Christian Voice, is going to be our guest on Writers Chat soon. We're plugging him into a date. He will also be teaching at the Ohio Christian Writers Conference on how to write for One Christian Voice, as well as combining that with how to secure interviews. He is our secret weapon. He is and Angie, and they are amazing. And so that Writer's Chat is going to be one that'll be a great follow-up to this. And also I'm unashamedly plugging the Ohio Christian Writers Conference for that reason as well. So now we can go off the recording.
Great. All right. Well, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.